Julien Royer, thank you for welcoming us into your restaurant here in Singapore. Welcome to Weird Sauce. And could you please introduce yourself?
My name is Julien Royer. I am a chef, I'm a cook, and I'm a co-owner of this restaurant here in Singapore called Odette. I have been in Singapore since 2008, arrived in 2008 first. And I'm originally from France. I'm from a very quiet part of France in Cantal, in the region of Auvergne, where I grew up into a family with rich, I would say, farming roots. My grandparents and my parents had a small farm, and my childhood was running out a lot near the farm and spending time a lot outside and eat and cook with my grandmother. The name of the restaurant is Odette. It's the name of my grandmother from my mom's side. And she has obviously a huge influence on my life. I start loving food, and my first memories of food is with my grandmother. I spent a lot of time cooking with her when I was a young kid, I think, around 7, 8 years old. And so food has always been very important for us. We didn't have much money. I'm coming from a very humble family, but we always eat very well because we always had the chance to have a huge garden outside, to have our own animals, poultries. My mom makes some goat cheese with the goats that we have. We have some honey production. So I've always been surrounded by this kind of self-sustainable or locavore environment before, the trend of this movement started. It was really the way of life. So it was a very simple life, but with a strong focus and a strong love for ingredients, farm, produce, nature, I would say. So I decided to become a cook, a bit naturally, because I really enjoy my time with my family in the kitchen, spending a lot of time from summer, peeling the fresh peas or getting the haricot vert in the garden and start to remove the things from the haricot vert, spending a lot of time in the garden, doing my own little garden and cooking with my grandma. One of the fondest memory I had till today is to pick the fresh berries, the wild berries from the area where we live. So we are around 800, 900 meter altitude, semi-high mountain, and then you have like wild blueberry and wild raspberries that you pick on the bush. And when you taste it, it's just like, it's hard to find these kind of ingredients nowadays. And this, I think, put in your DNA a very strong and hard print, Those are memories that are really with me forever. The taste of this wild berry picking, and then after that you're gonna cook the jam and do a tart or do a pastry that will feed the family and the people around you, and that will bring happiness through something simple, but made with your hand, pick with your hands, and bake with love. This is priceless. So that's why I decided to enter into the culinary world or training. So I went for apprenticeship in the Aurillac when I start my career, I would say. And then after 2 years, I wanted to go and work, but my mom told me, no, you're a bit too young to go and work. I think it's better to study a little bit more. So I went then to do the hospitality school of Chamalières near Clermont-Ferrand, where I stayed for four years, and I did like the equivalent of a degree of culinary arts and luxury management in hospitality, which was a good idea because I realized after that what I learned during those 4 years there was very necessary to run a business, to be able to travel, to be able to understand not the cooking, it's just the cooking, but beyond that, to run a business, to learn how to count and how to make your passion a job. I mean, everyone, I think, a lot of people are able to cook good food, but making this becoming a job and a source of income and being recognized for it and being appreciated for it, it's a different story. So I was happy to listen to my mom for once. And after that, I start working in 2 different kitchens from a very humble restaurant or regional cooking to a 3 Michelin star top-hand restaurant. I did a little bit of everything, some brasserie, some hotel, some fine dining, some top 3-star restaurant. The 2 main maisons that I will remember and that I always cherish in my heart. The first one is a restaurant Michel Brasse in La Gueule, where I was a young cook there, and it was amazing because it was my first step into that level of cuisine. I didn't realize that cuisine can be so not only beautiful, not only artful and tasty, but that have a meaning, you know. They already were pioneer when it comes to, for example, vegetarian eating. There's one of the first vegetarian tasting menu in France in the early 80s. It was pioneer in a way that he understood very early the importance of locally sourced ingredients and understand the circuit court, you know, when you have something around maybe 5-10 kilometers around the restaurant, that's your game, that's your playground. You don't need to go beyond that limit because you got everything. So it was very interesting. It was an open eyes and open mind experience for me. I learned some great recipes and cooking, but I learned more than that, the human factor of running a big restaurant like that with probably at that time 100 people working there. And always, you know, stay grounded and stay humble and have a lot of integrity in the whole process. So that was one of my most memorable experience. The other one was a totally different kind of restaurant. I was with Bernard Andrieux. It's a 1 Michelin star restaurant just out on the outskirts of Clermont-Ferrand on the road to the Puy-de-Dôme, which is nice surroundings. That was a very much more classic approach of cooking, a much more, I would say cuisine bourgeoise a little bit with a lot of sauce and gibier and rich kind of cuisine with a lot more luxury ingredients. It was 2 different styles of cooking. It was 2 different approach of cooking. And I enjoy both. You know, at Bernard Andrieux, it was very hard in a way that we work very, very long hours. The atmosphere sometimes in the kitchen was a bit intense. But he's the guy that always takes time to pass you on the knowledge and spend time with you to teach you a recipe or a sauce or a jus or a cuisson from the beginning to the end. And you will learn some very, very, very solid basics of cooking. And I think this is when you want to learn the music, you know, you learn your solfège first before you're able to perform at a higher level. And I learned for 2.5 years there, I learned all my basics that you think you know after the school, but actually you don't really know because you didn't practice them a lot. And I think the repetition of the hands and the gestuelle, la main, the toucher, you learn it with time. And by doing this a lot, I learned very, very strong, I would say basics of cooking, which I use every day in my job and which are, I think, essential to any cook to really be able to have a benchmark of senses. So that was the 2 maisons that are really important for me. And then the beauty of this job is you are really able to travel a lot. So I met my wife in a hospitality school in Chamalières, and then we've been together since, and we've been able to travel the world together. So we went to work in the Caribbean first. We worked in St. Bart's in the Caribbean for a year and a half. So we learned how to export ourselves, meet different people, And when it comes to cooking and food, it's, get yourself understanding the people habits when it comes to food, and understanding the market. I mean, I won't say the market, but understanding the people, understanding the fisherman, the resources that you have around you. That's something very important. So after we go back to France, then we move to French Polynesia, we work in Bora Bora, go back to France, move to London, go back to France, move to Singapore. So it's kind of very easy to move as in this industry. And you are able to meet a lot of people. You are able to travel. When you are young, it's easy to travel, When you have someone, you are 20 years old, 25 years old, and someone call you and say, hey, I have a position of chef de partie for you in Bora Bora. Oh, okay. Wow, let's do it. You have the insouciance, I will say, of the being young, and it's easy to find a job. That's really great about this job. There's always a need for a cook, I would say. And then finally arrived in Singapore in 2008. So we were there for the opening of the St. Regis first. I was in charge of what was supposed to be a fine dining restaurant, which was the first few months. But after, the owner was moving into different direction. They wanted to make a big return on investment, big money, and they changed the concept to something more like brasserie with buffets and stuff. So I did my 2 years contract, but the job didn't really fit what I wanted to do. So then we left after 2 years. We loved Singapore at first, but we left because the job was not really what I was looking for. It was more like a hotel job with a lot of corporate and politics involved, which I'm not very good at to deal with. So we went to London. I was working at the Greenhouse in Mayfair, which was a Michelin star restaurant, as a sous chef. It was great to put feedback in Europe and back to really like high level of cooking with what it requires, bit of craziness in terms of dedication, sacrifice, and crazy hour. And then I have the opportunity to come back. So I came back in Singapore, and I was the chef of a restaurant called Jan at the Swiss Hotel from 2011 to 2015. So I stayed there for 4.5 years. And then in October 2015, we opened this restaurant here. So I met my business partner, Tang, through a common friends while doing a cooking class. And then I was telling her that, after a while working for someone, I think is the natural next step for a cook, for a chef, to try to do your own, find your own style of cooking, which takes sometimes years, and try to have your own restaurant. So I met the good people at the good time. I was lucky in a bit, in a way, and in 6 months, the restaurant was born. And since then, it's been a fantastic ride with not only having a successful restaurant with awards and stuff, because this, I think, come after, but building a team spirit, building a family-like culture that I saw first at Michel Brasse. This is something that really is close to my heart, and that I cherish every day, to have a lot of people working into the same direction to achieve high quality, consistency, and passion. And one more thing about this beautiful job that we do is that cooking good food one day is easy, but cooking very good food every day is difficult. And the consistency is something that you build only with a very solid team of people around you. And we really try to work on values of humility, integrity, awareness, and we try to deliver a very genuine hospitality, very genuine message of food that has been really carefully sourced, cooked, and honestly delivered, I hope. And sometimes you manage to do it, sometimes you don't, but when you are able to do it, and when you are able to deliver a soupçon, a little dot of emotion through food to the people, it's exactly what brings me back to my roots of baking a blueberry tart with my grandma. It was not fancy at all, but it was delicious, and she gives so much happiness, emotion, and smile through the food and the cuisine that we were doing. That, you know, it's memories that I really cherish. And if we are able to do that at a restaurant, that I'm the happiest man in the world, you know.
So thank you for this amazing trip that you just gave us through your life, and how you got here and how we got here. So here we are in 2021, in the first part of 2021 in Singapore, in your 3-star Michelin restaurant, in the aftermath of a pretty bad pandemic that we're still kind of managing. So I would like you to take a step back from your role as a chef and in ordinary times, and talk to us a little bit more about what food means to you, not just as a very high-level chef, but as a person. So for me, if I was listening to this conversation, I would love to know, what does a man like this eat every day? Has this changed? Does he think about it? So these are the things that I would like you to share with our audience.
Yeah. Well, it's a very interesting and deep topic, especially as a cook, as a chef. Food is everything for me. Food is what I'm doing every day. Food is my job. Food is my passion. Food is my obsession, because I'm fortunate enough to do my job as a passion, and we are doing it every day. And you know, I love food. I love to eat. I love to share a meal with some friends. I love to cook for some friends. I love to have people. I love to host people. And I think food is an amazing, how do you say that, vector of communication, regardless your color of skin, religion, or nationality. It's amazing how you bring people together, and how you really can able to break the borders and to forget about the social level of people around a good table with food. So it's very different the way we cook here and the way I eat outside, obviously, because when I am on off duty, I would say I don't like to eat too much into fine dining or fancy restaurant. I really like to have something extremely simple, but extremely well cooked, I would say. I'm not a very picky eater. I just like simple food that is properly cooked. So I don't like things that are too fancy, usually. Of course, I like to go sometime to one of my confrères or colleagues to experience fine dining, but this is very little, not very often. I like to eat simple food that is just nicely done, fresh and tasty. And sounds easy, but actually it's quite difficult to find, you know, to have something that is really but made by someone that has a lot of attention to, first of all, the produce, because everything starts from there. No good food without good produce. This is a strong belief that I have, is the key and the beginning of happiness, I would say, and of good health. After what happened, and after this crazy situation that we have experienced and that we are still on somehow, as I was sharing earlier, I think the awareness of people to good food equal good health, good food equal I'm gonna be able to live nicely, feeling good. You know, it's has changed a lot. The awareness has grown so much, and people are very curious on what they eat and what they put in their plate, even more than before, which is great. Which is great because we need to have some hope, and we need to be able to educate people more. And for us as a chef, we do have a role to play in terms of educating people of eat less but eat better, you know, not stop like this over consumption and over consumption of the resource that has been made for decades. When does it start? It really is difficult to say, but I think we have come to a status that we have consumed too much. We are consuming too much, and there is definitely a way to consume better. And I think this notion of less but better, it's something that I personally want to pursue. It's something that I want to pursue for my guests in terms of the way we create menu and the way we balance things, you know. Why does a fine dining restaurant needs to have 3 different or 5 different trolley of bread and petit four that at the end of the day, people are going to eat 1 piece of bread or 2 pieces of bread? Why do you need to have 25 pieces of bread and a bread service that ultimately going to go back where at the end? Why do we need to waste so much? I think it's really our role, our target, our mission, our responsibility to try to control our wastage and to educate people better. Of course, the cook that we have in the kitchen, something that we try to do really is to use every single part of the fish or meat that we use, you know. And you can do it home, you know. Do you need to eat 3 times per week roast chicken? No, you can do it maybe once a week, but buy a better quality chicken, and then you're gonna do a roast chicken. But what you're gonna do after with the leftover meat, you're gonna take all the meat out of the bone and keep it cold and make maybe a nice sandwich for the following day. And then the bones, we are going to chill it down and you're gonna make a broth with it. You're gonna put maybe in some water and add some bay leaves, some coriander seeds, the stem of the parsley that you have chopped for another preparation. You keep the stem and it's going to be very flavorful for your stock, and so on, and so on, and so on. You know, everything can be transformed to something. And I think when it comes to food, it's very important to look at everything that we waste. It's crazy. It's just crazy, and it's consumable, it's edible, and it can be delicious. And I hope one day I can do a booklet on this. What looks not good or what you are about to put in your garbage can actually be something delicious that you can recycle and do. So this is something that we try to educate to our team and our people. And coming back to your main question, food is very important to me, to anybody, and I think anybody who has a common sense, a little bit of common sense, will understand and will agree that good food is probably the key success to good health and to longevity. So there is this awareness now. We have definitely to lead by example the movement of eat less but better, and as a chef support the people that we believe work with the best and highest condition of preserving the nature and the resources. And it's crazy because when I first arrived in Singapore, for me it was shocking that where I'm coming from, we had everything. And here, I think the official figure is 92% of what the food that is consumed in Singapore is imported. And you think at first, for me, it was really like a gap that was difficult to go through. How can you have a plethora of choice and access to everything while the country produces actually nothing? It's crazy. And now, you know, we start to, life brought you here. So what are you gonna do? You're not going to do the revolution and change everything, but you can try to choose the people that you buy the food from and to choose to control the logistic of bringing the food over here. And that is something that we try every day to do. We have one person here full-time doing only this. Sourcing with the right people and adapting menus and recipes to whatever is available. I think sometimes, especially this kind of restaurant, fine dining, we need to have we have a flexibility. There is no a la carte menus. I don't order a croque monsieur or a salad or a steak au poivre. No, we have the possibility of moving things around according to what is available and what we think is fair and in the great quality and supply enough to build our menus and our experience for our guests. So we do have a role to play as well to educate how to buy better. I had to purchase better. And really the paradox of Singapore, it's crazy because you have access to anything and everything while you produce so little. So now what we try to do is when we find something that is produced here and that we believe is not only good for the taste, but is produced with responsibility and again, preservation of resources, no use of chemical or no, how do you say, no outside substance that helps to grow things. Because if it's growing things for the sake of growing things, but if these things that you grow is not good for your health because you use a lot of chemicals, what's the point? You know.
So you talked a lot about the chain, and you use the word good many times in terms of defining food. So in healthcare, we look at food as one of the most powerful tool in terms of its impact to health, longevity, and disease. As you know, the world is facing non-communicable disease pandemic in addition to the actual pandemic of COVID-19. A lot of these things are food, sleep, mobility related. So I would like to understand a little bit more what's your definition in terms of health of what you define as good food. You've defined it very well for what you think it is for the planet, for the people who provide you these produce. What does it mean for you? Do you think about it? Do you think when you put something into your mouth, do you think about it? And then the second part of that question is when you are in a very strong position to create something, which is a dish, that's going to go into somebody's mouth, not just as a emotional experience, but as a physiological experience, do you take this into account, the medical part, the fact that you may be contributed to them being not just happy, but maybe slightly better?
Yeah.
Is that something that you think about?
Yes, it is something that I think about, but I will say not into the very medical point of view. I was taught some very basic principle of eating habit and food habits, and those principles are around the notion of balance, I would say. We, as I said, where I come from, we eat well because we were lucky to have a lot of things around us. But we eat a lot of pretty much what we grow. We eat a lot of vegetable during the spring and the summer. We eat a lot of mushroom and roots and Jerusalem artichoke, parsley root, chervil roots during the autumn and winter. Those are seasonal ingredients that grow, and there is a natural cycle of seasonality that come. What my family and what my teacher, my chefs, that my mentor show me is that balance is very important. I don't think into an extremism. I think extremism in everything is dangerous, and I think I respect the choice when it's, religious, or when it's a tradition. But I think some people tend to be too extremism when it comes to eating nowadays, and I've noticed it myself that some people that are, for example, following a vegan diet try to convince others to do the same. I think this is bad, because it's not because what you think is true for you will be necessarily true for others. And what I like, it's a bit of psychology and a bit of common sense when it comes to balance, Nowadays, and I think with social media and stuff, it makes the thing a bit crazier. So vegetarian will try to convince everyone to be a vegetarian. A guy that is pescatarian will tell everyone that eat meat is like, a bad person. But at the end of the day, we have been eating and surconsuming a lot. But what I strongly believe in is that eating a little bit of everything, but eating good quality of everything, will create somehow a cycle of bien-être for us, but for Mother Nature that has been over-abused for many, many years. And when you talk, nowadays I look a lot at books and documentary about this. It's hard to have an answer. It's hard to find an answer, and it's hard to tell you, okay, what you saw in your last Netflix thing about the sea, it's not quite exactly, the truth. But where is the truth and who holds the truth? I think the awareness is here. We all know that we have to be careful. We all know that we have to respect seasonality, respect more the resources, but how to translate it into our daily life. I go back to eat less but eat better. So when I think about my menu, I want to use less protein, more vegetal, that's for sure. This is something we try to do here. We always come here since day one with two menus, one which is called Terre et Mer, which is a little bit this, a little bit of everything. A little bit of fruits, a little bit of vegetable, a little bit of seafood, a little bit of meat, and everything is well balanced into the menu. And we have our menu we call Nature et Découverte, which is an entirely menu dedicated to the vegetal world. So there is no animal protein in it. It's a vegetarian menu basically. It's not vegan, even though some of the dishes are, but it's a vegetarian menu. And this is something that we are known for, and this is something we have been running since day one. And it's funny because some people, you see this nowadays. Last Friday, for instance, out of 40 guests, we sold 14 vegetarian menu out of 38 customers, which is quite a number, And I think out of those 14 guests, 2 were vegetarian. And this is something new. This is something that we didn't see before. People say, okay, why not? Tonight I'm going to indulge myself. I'm going to go to a fancy restaurant, but I'm going to have a vegetarian menu. Okay, why not? I'm happy to see that,
That's the experience. I think some people may listen to this and think, okay, but that's the experience of very few people in the world can have this, especially right now, the ability to say, I'm going to eat in a 3-star Michelin, that I'm going to have a chef that has all this background and is going to think about this to produce this in my plate. That concerns a fraction of the world population. Yeah. So for people at home, or running a family with kids, or running a family with multi-generation, and they're trying to get better with food, because food is a big part of their health. To go back to your concept of good, how can you, let's say Singapore as a city-state, right? We don't have a lot of countryside. We don't have a lot of these resources and organic farmers and so on. How, on an everyday basis, do you think, as a chef, you can give people an idea of how to rely on good, simple food that would help their health?
I think it's, being in Singapore, it's not something easy. If you ask me the same question, home in France, for example, where you have a terroir, when you have farmers all around, and we have a lot of different regions we have a very rich agriculture, it's a lot easier. Being in Singapore, it's very, very tricky. It's difficult. It's very difficult. So once again, it comes to the consumer desire to, let's say if you have a family with 4 kids, you need to cook for 6 persons every day. It's definitely a commitment. And if you are by yourself and no one to help you, I think it's really about taking the time to feed your family, but taking the time to feed your family smartly and responsibly takes a lot of practice and training. Because when you are going to go to do your grocery, and when you are going to go to the market to find your ingredients, you better be prepared. You better have your week plan, and what I'm gonna buy from Tuesday to Saturday, and each day you plan your meal according to, of course, what you can afford, because there's also the notion of price that is a huge problem. But I don't think great food is necessarily expensive food. I don't think very good products are necessarily expensive. I think the notion of the knowledge of cooking and the knowledge of being able to reuse some stuff from the day before to the following days and being able to use leftover will save a lot of time and a lot of money into the chronology of organizing your week of eating for your family. So this is something that comes with practice. Not everyone is a natural born cook, and some people just cook food just for eating and without the notion of real pleasure, which for me is sad. But I think a great meal can come from very humble ingredients. And take bread, for instance. Every one of us is able to bake some bread because those are very basic ingredients into bread and very cheap ingredients. Every one of us with practice and time will learn how to make bread. Just one thing. Three things: flour, salt, yeast, water. And this is the beginning, After, a good bread will last for a few days, so you don't have to go back to the supermarket every day. So again, the chronology of the week needs to be very well thought. You need to plan the meal according to your budget and according to the number of people and according to what my spaghetti bolognese from first day will, what will I have left from that, okay? What if I do a pot-au-feu that is very, like the iconic French dish, a pot-au-feu with some paleron, some bone marrow, some whatever you put inside your pot-au-feu is water, beef, carrots, celery. The broth of the pot-au-feu will make a second meal because I can cook some pasta and eat some pasta or eat it as a soup with a nice brunoise of carrot, leek, onion, delicious. All the meat left over on the bone, I'm gonna scrap it off and make a nice salad or make a potato salad with some meat. I really think that we are consuming and cooking in a way that one dish, one meal. No. One dish, maybe several meals. But when it comes to purchasing, I think we just go to the grocery and, I'm going to take this, I'm going to take this, I'm going to take this. But sometimes when I see the fridge of people, I should not tell you that, but it's crazy. The amount of stuff they have in their fridge is like, wow, why you have so much thing, Why do you need to have like 10 different type of sauces for your barbecue? Why you need to have your fridge full of like snacks, chocolate, yogurt of 20 different flavor, vegetable and fruits that are like, that you're not going to be able to consume all that. And I think this is, there is an awareness to have, and there is a conscience to have when you buy things. Do you really need this?
This is an interesting approach to this concept. What I hear this as an auditor to this conversation is that it takes a lot of knowledge, a lot of training, a lot of skills to be able to even understand what to buy. That you have had this training yourself, so you know exactly that too much is not a good thing, that you know that sometimes less is more, and then good, you know how to define this. Do you think that we have a major problem at society level, not just here in Singapore, that actually food, the preparation of food and what food is not being taught, neither at school nor in the family anymore? And as a result, you get people who are adults who have no notion of how, not how to cook, but how to look after therefore family that they may be in charge, etc. So do you think that food and food education should be a fundamentally part of our education system perhaps, and should be a vital requirement for life?
I think so. I think food education should be something that our leaders and government and politics globally must put back into the basic apprentissage of life, because this is precisely what will define the way we eat, live, and be healthy or no. I think in the previous generation, they used to, I think my grandmother told me she used to have cooking lesson when she was at school. That was not a cooking school, huh? That was like a normal cycle of school. And I think definitely we have to teach people, because you cannot know like this. We have to teach our kids how to eat, how to consume, how to choose the good ingredients. And when you think about it, it's quite crazy that we don't do it, because in some part of the world, I was reading about these communities called the Kogis in Colombia. So there's this maybe, I don't know, 20,000 people living in La Sierra Nevada in the north of Colombia. And they are kind of very autochthone and independent from the world outside them. They live in the mountain and they eat very simply, but they eat, again, a little bit of everything. They eat pork, they eat beef, they eat fish, they eat vegetable, they eat tapioca, they eat rice, they eat a little bit of everything. And you see the passing on of the knowledge. The kids learn how to cook. So I don't think it was for the camera they did that. I think they really do that, and they keep passing on knowledges. And one of the main knowledge they pass on, it's farming, being able to go and cut the sugar cane, how to make the juice out of the sugar cane, how to do many things out of it, because there's plenty of it there, and how to cook, how to catch a fish and how to cook the fish. And I think it's very beautiful to look at, and it makes you question yourself, It makes you think, why in our modern society, with all the stuff that we have, and now we have been never as connected as now, why we don't do that, or why we have stopped doing that? Why do we have stopped to teach young generation the education of food and the education of taste? Very, very strange where we came from and what we do now. Why those people who has nothing are able to do it, and why we have everything and we don't do it anymore? It's crazy. But yes, definitely, going back to the real world, food is definitely need to be taught in all the school, in everywhere in the world. I think this is really something that our leaders should think about. It's not only finding solution to the problem, but finding where the problem started. And I think the roots and everything comes from education. If we educate people to buy better, to eat better, they will do it.
So Julien, tell us, to get to the conclusion of this podcast, tell us a little bit more about what you do every day to look after yourself, because you are a successful chef.
Yeah.
I assume that your hours are long. I assume that you have to probably compromise on some aspect of daily behavior, like sleep, physical activity. So what is your routine to look after that which is the result of, or the generator of success for your restaurant, for your staff, etc.?
Well, we try always to stay in good health and eat good food in the restaurant, but outside the restaurant as well. My day always starts by a big breakfast with my wife. This is our time of the day where no phone, no TV, just my wife and myself eating a good breakfast. And I was always taught, I was taught when I was a kid, so I remember that breakfast is one of the most, if not the most important meal of the day. So we eat well for breakfast. We have bread, sometimes cereal, sometimes orange juice, sometimes eggs, but again, not too much, and we try to to change it a little bit. But this is our quality time, and this is a good start of the day, I would say. Every morning, it's our important time with nothing to disturb. After, when it comes to our job, because it requires a lot of sacrifices and we're working very long hours, we probably don't have the best lifestyle as a chef, because it's hard to combine being able, I try to exercise. I try to make some sports at least 2 times a week. I cycle to work. Some basic stuff like this that we kind of practice on daily basis. But we know that we are probably eating too much, because when we try, you still eat, and it's definitely not the best practice. But out of work, I think I really try to pay attention of eating reasonably and having a bit of variation into the alimentation. So plus by the fact of cooking, for me it's quite easy. So like my wife would say, I'm able to do something great in 10-15 minutes, and try to have a variation and a balance again. I think it's all about this, honestly. Sometimes, you're gonna have the same pleasure of eating, why not a nice piece of beef with fries when you go out in a restaurant one day, but the following day, if you do a salad with endive and some cheese and some walnut and some seeds, and it's delicious, and some grape. I think it's really all about balance. So what I try to apply to myself is this. It's eating a little bit of everything, having a sense of balance, and being reasonable when it comes to eating too much meat, too much quantity, even if it's hard sometimes, but we have to stay fit and healthy to perform at that level for a long run. And you see, I think the awareness of young chefs has changed a lot. In the 60s, 70s, you see all the chefs were quite prominent, quite big, and now the new generation of chefs are not the same, I would say, and more aware of the importance of being healthy and fit into the kitchen.
So to conclude, we always ask this to all of our guests. This is why the podcast is called Weird Sauce. So as a chef, it's a little bit of an irony for you, because obviously sauce is meant as a mixture of things.
Yeah.
But if you had a weird sauce that defines you in both your success, your goal in the future, and something that maybe the audience may get inspired by, what would be your weird sauce?
Wow, that's a very complex question. I will take the example of a sauce that everyone knows, and I will make the link with your question. We have mayonnaise. It's made of egg. Some people put mustard or not, salt, vinegar or not, and oil. And what is the main danger when you cook a mayonnaise is that the mayonnaise split. And those are very simple principle of emulsification. Water versus fat, fat versus water. And a simple thing like that is actually just a few ingredients, but you need to respect the very basic principle of temperature, to have all the same ingredient at the same temperature, and to emulsify and whisk gently, increasing the speed slowly to make the mayonnaise. And I think this is my weird sauce, is the mayonnaise, because we saw and we see that it's easy to split, but it's easy to fix. And I think us as human beings, we are exactly the same. Not many things can come into interaction to make split our life, our well-being, our health. But I think going back to the food and fixing it by eating with balance, reasonably, less but better, we will fix our own mayonnaise. So I would say my weird sauce is the mayonnaise, and I think we all need to understand that we are able to fix ourselves.
Julien, thank you very much for the time that you gave us and that window into your mind and your life. Very much appreciated.
Thank you for your opportunity. Thank you.
If this conversation stopped you in your track, share it with your network. You never know whose life you might change for the better. Thank you for listening. Stay curious about our next guest, and stay curious about life.